Most men are not destroyed by failure. They are destroyed by the voice they hear after failure. The voice that says, "You're weak. You should have done more. No one respects you anymore." And the worst part? That voice usually sounds like your own. Modern society teaches men to smile in public while collapsing in private. To stay productive while emotionally exhausted. To keep scrolling, keep working, keep pretending. But what nobody tells you is this. If you speak to yourself like an enemy long enough, your mind eventually obeys. In this video, we're going to break down how your inner dialogue is quietly shaping your entire life, and how Stoic philosophy can help you rebuild it before it destroys you from the inside. Not with fake positivity. Not with motivational nonsense. But with psychological control. And somewhere near the end of this video, I'm going to show you the one habit modern society normalized that silently turns intelligent men into prisoners of their own minds. Once you notice it, you'll never see people the same way again. Welcome to Silent Authority. The war no one sees. There's a strange thing happening in modern society. People are speaking more than ever. Yet understanding themselves less than ever. Everywhere you look, someone is performing confidence online. Everyone is healing. Everyone is winning. Everyone is living their best life. But behind closed doors, millions of people are lying awake at 2 a.m. replaying conversations from 5 years ago. Punishing themselves for mistakes nobody else even remembers. That's the real epidemic. Not stress. Not anxiety. Not burnout. The way people speak to themselves when nobody is listening. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." 2,000 years later, modern society built an entire economy designed to make you forget that. Social media profits from insecurity. Advertising profits from inadequacy. Corporate culture rewards exhaustion. Algorithms reward outrage. The modern world constantly whispers, "You are behind. You are not enough. You need more validation. You need more attention. You need more status." And eventually, people internalize it. That's why so many men today look calm externally but internally feel like they're under attack every single day. This video is not about becoming positive. It's about reclaiming authority over your own mind. Today we'll break this down in 3 parts. First, we'll expose how destructive self-talk slowly rewires your identity. Then we'll explore how Stoic philosophy dismantles those mental traps. And finally, we'll rebuild a stronger internal voice, one rooted in discipline, clarity, and emotional control. Because the truth is, your inner voice is either training you to survive, or training you to collapse. Part 1, the inner voice that destroys men. Most people think self-destruction looks dramatic. Alcohol. Violence. Public breakdowns. But real psychological collapse is usually quiet. It looks like a man sitting in his car for 20 minutes before going inside his house because he doesn't have the energy to pretend anymore. It looks like someone laughing with coworkers while internally feeling completely disconnected from life. It looks like waking up already exhausted before the day even begins. And underneath all of it, there's usually one thing happening constantly. Negative self-talk. Not once a week. Thousands of times a day. Modern neuroscience suggests the average person experiences tens of thousands of thoughts daily. Most are repetitive. Many are negative. And the dangerous part is this. The brain believes what it hears repeatedly. If you tell yourself long enough that you're a failure, your nervous system begins acting like one. You hesitate more. Avoid opportunities. Overthink simple decisions. Expect rejection before it even happens. Then when life reflects that hesitation back at you, you call it proof. This is how people unconsciously imprison themselves. Machiavellian thinkers understood something disturbing about human nature. Control the narrative, and you control behavior. Most people think that only applies politically. It doesn't. Your internal narrative controls your identity the same way propaganda controls populations. If the voice inside your head constantly humiliates you, your mind eventually submits to it. That's why modern society keeps people overstimulated. Because silence creates awareness. And awareness breaks manipulation. Think about it. How many people actually sit alone quietly anymore? No phone. No music. No distraction. No validation. Almost nobody. Because the moment silence appears, the hidden voice appears too. And many people are terrified of what they'll hear. Epictetus once said, "Men are disturbed not by things, but by the view they take of them." Two men lose their jobs. One thinks, "My life is over." The other thinks, "This is painful, but maybe this forces me to rebuild." Same event. Different interpretation. Different future. That's the power of internal dialogue. And most people never realize their suffering is being amplified by the way they interpret reality. Not reality itself. Part 2, Modern society trains you to hate yourself. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Modern culture quietly conditions people to become emotionally dependent on external validation. Likes. Attention. Approval. Recognition. People no longer ask, "Am I living with integrity?" They ask, "How am I being perceived?" That shift destroys inner stability. Because perception constantly changes. One day people praise you. The next day they ignore you. One mistake online can erase years of respect. And if your self-worth depends on public approval, your emotional state becomes controlled by strangers. Marcus Aurelius warned about this exact weakness centuries ago. He understood that the crowd is unstable. Public opinion is unstable. Human praise is unstable. Yet modern society encourages people to build their entire identity on unstable things. That's why so many people secretly feel empty after achieving what they thought would make them happy. New car. New relationship. Promotion. More money. Temporary high. Then the voice returns. Because external success cannot silence internal chaos. And this becomes especially dangerous for men. Many men were taught, never complain. Never feel weak. Never ask for help. So instead of expressing pain, they weaponize it against themselves internally. A man can look disciplined while secretly hating himself every day. That's why burnout today feels different. It's not just physical exhaustion. It's psychological warfare. The constant pressure to perform. Compete. Provide. Appear successful. Appear emotionally unaffected. Meanwhile internally, the mind becomes hostile territory. And the darker reality? Society often rewards people for destroying themselves quietly. The exhausted worker gets praised. The emotionally numb man gets called strong. The overworked person gets admired for grinding. But nobody asks what it's costing psychologically. Machiavellian systems survive by keeping people distracted, insecure, and emotionally reactive. Because emotionally exhausted people are easier to control. They consume more. Seek more approval. Depend more on external structures for identity. That's why reclaiming control over your mind is more than self-improvement. It's rebellion. Part 3, The Stoic Method of Rebuilding Your Mind. Stoicism does not teach emotional suppression. It teaches emotional authority. There's a difference. Suppression says, pretend nothing hurts. Stoicism says, pain exists. But you decide what controls you. That distinction changes everything. The Stoics practiced something modern psychology now confirms: creating distance between yourself and your thoughts. Not every thought deserves belief. Not every emotion deserves obedience. Most people hear a negative thought and immediately identify with it. I feel weak. Therefore, I am weak. But Stoicism teaches observation before reaction. Instead of saying, I'm pathetic, you pause and ask, why am I speaking to myself like an enemy? That single moment of awareness interrupts the automatic cycle. And that's where transformation begins. Marcus Aurelius constantly journaled because writing exposes mental distortion. Thoughts sound powerful inside your head. But once written down, many look irrational. That's why journaling remains one of the most powerful psychological tools available. Not because it's trendy. Because it forces honesty. Try this. Write down your most common negative thought. Then ask, would I speak this way to someone I love? Most people wouldn't. Yet they speak to themselves with a level of cruelty they would never tolerate from another human being. That's not discipline. That's self-destruction disguised as toughness. Another Stoic principle is separating what you control from what you don't. You cannot control how people perceive you. You cannot control betrayal. You cannot control rejection. You cannot control economic chaos. But you can control your response. And that changes your nervous system completely. Because anxiety often comes from trying to mentally control outcomes that were never yours to control in the first place. The Stoics train themselves to return attention inward. Not obsessively, but strategically. Because where attention goes, identity follows. Part 4, the 3-day rebuild. Let's make this practical. Not theoretical. For the next 3 days, pay attention to the way you speak to yourself. Not occasionally. Constantly. Day 1 is awareness. Most people cannot change because they are unconscious. They repeat destructive mental habits automatically. So your only goal on day 1 is observation. Notice the moments when your inner voice becomes hostile. After mistakes. After rejection. After awkward conversations. After scrolling social media. Notice how quickly the mind attacks itself. No judgment. Just awareness. Because awareness weakens automation. Day 2 is interruption. The moment negative self-talk appears, pause. Challenge it. Ask yourself, is this objectively true? Or is this emotional exaggeration? Modern minds catastrophize constantly. One rejection becomes, no one will ever respect me. One mistake becomes, I ruin everything. But Stoicism teaches rational examination. Not emotional dramatization. Day 3 is reconstruction. This is where you deliberately replace destructive language with grounded strength. Not fake positivity. Not delusion. Truth. Instead of, I'm a failure. You say, I'm struggling right now, but I'm still moving. Instead of, nobody cares about me. You say, I need stronger boundaries and better people around me. That's power. Because powerful people do not manipulate reality emotionally. They face it clearly. And clarity creates emotional stability. Over time, this changes your entire presence. You become calmer. More difficult to provoke. Less desperate for validation. Less emotionally dependent on external approval. And ironically, that's usually when respect starts appearing naturally. Part 5, Why Silence Changes Everything. One of the most dangerous habits in modern life is constant noise. People are terrified of silence because silence exposes unresolved thoughts. That's why so many people compulsively scroll. Constant stimulation prevents self-confrontation. But silence is where self-awareness grows. This is why Stoic thinkers valued solitude. Not isolation. Solitude. There's a difference. Isolation weakens people. Solitude reveals people. When you sit quietly long enough, you begin noticing patterns. How often you seek validation. How often you assume rejection. How often you mentally attack yourself before anyone else can. And once you see those patterns clearly, you stop unconsciously obeying them. This is where real confidence comes from. Not performance. Not arrogance. Not pretending to dominate people. Real confidence is emotional self-trust. The ability to sit alone with your own mind without needing constant escape. Most people never reach that point. Because modern society trained them to fear themselves. Reclaiming authority over your mind. So let's bring this together. Your inner dialogue is not harmless. It becomes identity. The modern world profits from insecurity, distraction, and emotional dependency. And if you are not conscious, your mind slowly absorbs that chaos until you begin attacking yourself automatically. But Stoicism offers another path. Observe your thoughts instead of obeying them. Separate facts from emotional distortion. Focus on what you control. Replace self-humiliation with disciplined honesty. Not because life becomes easy, but because your mind becomes stronger. And maybe the most important realization is this. You are not weak for struggling internally. Most people are. The difference is that some people finally become aware of the war happening inside them. And decide to stop fighting themselves. At the end of the day, the voice you hear most in life will always be your own. So the real question is, will that voice become your prison? Or your ally? If this video spoke to something you've been carrying silently, leave a comment below with the word aware. Not for the algorithm. For yourself. And if you stayed until the end, you already took the first step most people avoid for their entire lives. Looking honestly at their own mind. Subscribe to Silent Authority for more videos about Stoicism, emotional control, psychological resilience, and surviving modern society without losing yourself in the process.